Hello，大家好，我是琪琪，在这里我会做一个现场演示，写一份作文给你们看。所以这份作文的话，等一下我会分享是什么主题跟什么题目。如果你有兴趣想要多看我做现场演示写作文的话，你可以关注我的频道。我们现在开始。这边我有一个题目，是一个图片，图片里面发生了一些事情，还有在它的右手边，我有7种不同的单词，所以这7种单词我们是必须要在我们的作文里面使用，还有我们作文最少要达到80个字。现在我会开始做示范，当场写这份80个字的作文，来吧。Okay, so for this composition is a scene in a subway train, and you can see there are a few people sitting on the seats, and there is a little boy giving his seat up for this pregnant lady. So my goal here is to write a narrative composition, minimum 80 words, including the 7 words that they have included for this exercise. So for this, I will give the boy a name, John. He is the main character. The supporting character in this story is the pregnant lady. So John is the main character. The supporting character is the pregnant lady. And then the scene or the venue is in a subway train. So this is the situation. In this case, I will start off with 3 different paragraphs. So paragraph number 1, I will want to talk more about the main character, John. So John was going home after a long day at school. Usually, he takes the subway home. So John was going home after a long day at school, for example. So that's what I perceive or what I assume. Usually he takes the subway home. This time, the subway was super crowded, as it was the peak period of the day. So in this case, I started to use the 7 keywords. So the first keyword I'm using is crowded. So in this case, I mentioned that the subway at this time that the boy was taking was super crowded, and it was the peak period of the day. Here, I give the brief introduction of the scene. So now I already introduced the scene, which is the subway. I introduced the action of the boy getting into the train. And then now, it depends on how much information I want to add inside the story before I bring in the supporting character. So I will add in a bit more story to the main character first, build his character first. So John was going home after a long day at school. Usually he takes the subway home. This time the subway was super crowded and it was the peak period of the day. He managed to find a seat and he sat down. So now I add in one more information, which is he must first sit down before he can give up his seat. So I need to introduce the action of him sitting down first. So he managed to find a seat in the train carriage and he sat down. Now, it may be possible to elaborate a bit more, but I would want to maybe go deeper into the supporting character. In the next stop, a pregnant lady boarded the train. Okay, in the next stop, a pregnant lady boarded the train. She looked around, but she could not find an empty seat to rest her tired legs. So here, let me change a bit of the grammar. At the next stop, a pregnant lady boarded the train. She looked around, but she could not find any empty seats to rest her tired legs. So now I start to use the second vocabulary. The second vocabulary is pregnant. Pregnant. And then the third one is boarded. So I started to introduce the main character and the supporting character into the story, including the supporting character boarding the train. Okay, and the next stop, a pregnant lady boarded the train. She looked around, but she could not find an empty seat to rest her tired legs. So this case, I bring it back to the main character. John noticed this, and the first thing that came to his mind was to give up his seat to this lady. So now I start to introduce the point where he noticed this situation, and the first thing that comes to his mind is he wanted to give up his seat to his to this lady to sit down. Before doing so, he turned his head and looked around to see if anyone else was willing to do so. So now here I'm trying to say is that, okay, he's in his mind, he's thinking, should I give up my seat? So I'm now going through the mind of John to think of whether is he going to give up his seat. And then before he take the action, he looked around, he turned his head left, turned his head right to see if anyone else is willing to do so. And the fact that no one else did, everyone was doing their own things, reading newspapers, looking at their phone, he decided to take action. So now I'm going to add in that portion. So John noticed this, and the first thing that came to his mind was to give up his seat to this lady. Before doing so, he turned his head and looked around to see if anyone else was willing to do so. Nobody moved. inch after the train started to move to the after the trains started to leave the current train station. Okay, so nobody moved an inch after the train started to leave the current train station. Without any hesitation, John stood up immediately and gave up his seat to this pregnant lady. So now I add in the action of after the train left the station, nobody decided to give the pregnant lady any empty seats, and without any hesitation, without thinking twice, John stood up immediately and gave up his seat to this pregnant lady. After the lady notices John's kind gesture, she profusely thanked him for his actions. Okay, so here profusely profusely thank and praise him for his action. Okay, yeah. So in this case here is nobody moved an inch after the train started to leave the current station. Without any hesitation, John stood up immediately and gave up his seat to this pregnant lady. After the lady noticed John's kind gesture, she profusely thanked and praised him for his actions. So in this case, now what I'm trying to put here is that after John immediately stood up, he went and gave his seat to the pregnant lady. The pregnant lady noticed his kind gesture and she thanked and praised John profusely for his action. It means thank him with a kind, and or the meaning here will be a large amount of something. So in this case, I have already used the word gave up, profusely, praised, yes, and then last but not least, kind. 7. All 7 words has been used. So now I have already given the information where the lady thanked and praised him for his action. John was happy that he did a good deed for someone who is in need of help. So here in this case, I now already reached the third paragraph, so where I started to talk about more of the main characters' emotions, feelings. John was happy, or John was pleased. he was pleased with himself that he did a good deed for someone who is in need of help. For example, a pregnant lady, or maybe an elderly. So he was pleased and that he did a good deed for someone who is in need of help. He would do the same in the future if it happens again. He will do the same in the future if it happens again. So if another situation or another time in the subway train where this situation happens again, he will not hesitate to give up his seat for someone who needs it more than him. So let's look at how many words did we actually write. In this case, I wrote 189 words. So here I've already exceeded, which is okay, perfectly fine, no worries. 189 words, 189. So I've already achieved my goal here. So my main character is John. My supporting character is a pregnant lady. The word count is 189. So here I have written 3 different paragraphs: introduction, the body, and the conclusion. So here, to reiterate, John was going home after a long day at school. Usually, he takes the subway home. This time, the subway was super crowded and it was the peak period of the day. It was the peak period of the day. He managed to find a seat in the train carriage and he sat down. At the next stop, a pregnant lady boarded the train. She looked around, but she could not find an empty seat to rest her tired legs. So here I give some more description. I describe the characters, what they feel and what they are doing. So she looked around, there are some actions here, and then John noticed this. So there's also some actions that this main character did. He looked at the situation, he analyzed the situation, and the first thing that came to his mind was to give up. So he was thinking. I want to show his thinking, his thought process, to give up his seat to this lady. And then here is a way to connect the sentences. Before doing so, he turned his head and looked around to see if anyone else was willing to do so. Nobody moved an inch after the train started to leave the current train station. Without any hesitation, John stood up immediately and gave up his seat to the pregnant lady. So besides having gave up, I add in one more verb to make it stood up, to make the action more serious and more dramatic. After the lady noticed John's kind gesture, she profusely thanked and praised him for his actions. So John was pleased that he did a good deed. He was pleased that he did a good deed for someone who is in need of help. So a good deed was also a new word, who is in need of help. He will do the same in the future if it happens again. So this is my way of writing a story on the spot without any previous practices or preparation. I come up with a story on the spot, minimum 80 words. I wrote 189 words, 3 paragraphs with 1 main character and 1 supporting character. So these are some of the things that I also do in my class with my current students. If you are interested to know more about such contents, continue to follow my channel, I will share more. 现在我已经完成演示我的作文。如果你对我这种内容感到有兴趣的话，你可以继续关注我的频道，我会分享更多类似这样子的内容给你们看，给你们学习。 好了，我们下次见啦。